Welcome to Marsha's Plate. This is an interview episode where we talk to friends, family, other community members, and anybody else we want to talk to. Hey brother, hey brother, hey sister, hey sister, hey sibling, how are you? Hey brother, hey brother, hey sister, hey sibling, how are you? Hey, how you been doing? Just checking in today.
Hey, what's up, y'all? So I have a treat for y'all. This ain't just for y'all, this is for me too. I am, I'm what the people would call vanilla. So there's so much stuff that I gotta learn, and I thought that it would be great for me to bring somebody who I know that is in the leather community to come in and teach me some stuff, and I can learn more about him, and teach me a little bit more about the leather community. I met you when we worked at BTech together, and you were so dope and so nice, and you just had like a very just nice spirit about you. And I was like, oh, one day I'm gonna have him on the show, and here you are. So welcome, Mayura.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. I've been wanting to do this for a minute, so I'm pumped.
So I want you to, before we get started in the deep stuff in regards to the leather community, I want you to tell me who was loving on you when you were growing up. What's your history? What did your family unit look like? Who was your family, and how did that manifest?
So I was raised by a single dad. My dad is still my best friend to this day. I love him so very much. He was a stern military man, so I was always in line, but he had this softness about him that people rarely got to see, but I got to see it every once in a while. Um, I think outside of that, my big mama was a huge part of my life. She passed away when I was about 9 years old, but when I was younger, I was actually raised by her and my dad. My dad lived with her while he was going to school and getting his degree and working and whatnot. And that's really my upbringing. I was born in Atlanta, Georgia, grew up there. We did a lot of moving because the military, and my dad works for Social Security Administration, so we had to move around a lot for him to climb the ladder there. Um, I have siblings, half siblings. I have an older sister and a younger sister who passed away last summer, and a younger brother. And my mom, God rest her soul, passed away when I was 20. But when I was older, we were a lot closer than when I was younger, because when I was younger, she struggled with substance use disorder, so I didn't see her much. Because my dad wanted to like shield me from that. So I spent a lot of time just like with my dad, with my friends. I was a theater kid growing up, so I spent a lot of time in the arts. I was a band kid too, so I played clarinet from fourth grade on the way up, and then played baritone and tuba. So that's a little bit about me growing up.
I love that. How did your identity now manifest itself? Some people would call it a coming out story. Some people would call it, living my truth. There's so many ways, euphemisms, and how we describe it. Describe how your story in acknowledging yourself and really just living your truth.
Oh yeah, I have had to come out several times, as many trans people do. I think by the last time, my dad was like, "Is this it? Like, I'm so serious. Like, is this it? Are we good? Are we on the same accord?" And I was like, "Yes, Dad. This is it." I lied to him then too, because I had to come out as poly about 2 years later. So he was like, "Are you serious?" But no, I think for me, I I came out in high school as actually I came out in middle school as a lesbian, and then I came out as high school as someone who was bi. College went back to being a lesbian because men suck, and then
No
I
matter the
was
identity.
no matter the identity. Like, I was like, oh no, I'm gonna go back to being a lesbian. This is terrible out here. Then through grief, which a lot of people don't talk about, how sexuality shows up in grief, and like how you can become super sexual during your grieving stage. I showed out. I was hoeing up when I decided to grieve in college, and ended up getting pregnant. And for me, that was the moment when my body felt the most uncomfortable. And I figured out, like, oh no, like, I had never heard of trans. I had never met anyone who was trans, but I knew something was not comfortable with what was going on through this pregnancy. So I talked to my girlfriend at the time and was telling her, like, hey, all of what I was experiencing. And she introduced me to the first trans man I had ever met in my life. His name was Elliot. He was in college with me, and he was a huge advocate in college for trans right things, but it never really clicked to me like that was a part of my identity. I just was like, oh, he's dope, he's doing the good work, and that was all. I was like, it never connected with me. After I gave birth, I realized, like, this may be a part of my identity, and this may be something that I want to pursue. How do I do that while still being a parent, while still being the only parent to my son, who was calling me mommy at that point? Um, so then I had to figure out how to come out to my child, and not how to come out to like a teenage child, how to come out to a toddler child, which is even stranger for them to like grasp the idea of this. I was more nervous than I should have been, because now that I have been trans for 10 years now, I look back and say, kids are easy to tell about when trans things are happening. Kids are like, okay, cool. And like Aiden literally took him 2 hours to go from mommy to daddy, and we never looked back. And it's been an amazing experience ever since. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of my coming out story and what that looked like for me. Pregnancy was really the aha moment, as people would say.
I love that, because that is unique, to have a story where it's like your actual pregnancy is what triggered your dysphoria, and or something in that realm to make you realize, oh, I'm not fully set in whatever the ideas of womanhood. And it's like, I just think that that's quite interesting. How was it navigating relationships during that time?
Oh, it was very hard, because I tried for the longest, like for the first 3 years of Aiden's life, I tried really hard to, one, make it work with his bio dad, who had ended up going off and getting married to someone who was 10 years younger than him and just fresh out of high school. So it was all the scandal. And I was like, oh, and he was like, well, we could like have like a whole unit. And I was like, are you inviting me to be sister wives? Is that what's happening right now? Like, and he sure enough was very much into that. Not my cup of tea. So glad I did not go down that path. But then starting to date other men and or women, there was this sense of they wanted to be the stand-in parents before I was ready for that to happen. So Aiden and I were still trying to figure out like our dynamics as like parent and child, and me going from mother to father to him. And when I was dating other men, it didn't feel right. It didn't feel like they wanted to be the father. And that's kind of also when I knew, okay, I've been trying to make this work. I've been trying to make this work with my baby daddy. This is not working. I don't like this. I don't like how I'm presenting or showing up in my son's life. I don't like how they're presenting or showing up in my son's life. How can I make this happen? So I started doing counseling. I started therapy a few years into being a parent and having this conversation around, hey, I don't know what dysphoria looks like, but I think I'm dysphoric in everything right now. My relationship, my body, everything. And I also ended up having a lot of qualms around what my orientation was at that time because I didn't know, like, am I gay? Am I straight? Am I bi? I have this kid. Like, what is happening? Um, so yeah, it was very hard to date during that time.
Mm.
I ended up getting into a pretty rough relationship with my ex where it was a lot of domestic violence that was happening, and she and I like identified as lesbians, and then I transitioned, and she would tell people, oh, I'm still a lesbian, he's a trans man, that doesn't count. And that would feel very much like demasculating to me and like make my identity feel very icky. So it was a very hard time trying to date and work around that as well when I transitioned.
In this day and age, right now, in this moment where trans people are being kind of marginalized on a whole different level than we have seen, poignantly, like really attacked, how does that affect your relationship with your child as a trans parent in regards to navigating school, navigating threats of somebody trying to like take away your child because of abuse and you not being a fit parent because you are trans? Is that something you worry about? Is it something that you're thinking about? How are you navigating that space within the past 5 years?
So, me and my spouse have been navigating this in a very cautious way. We are very fortunate as far as schools go. Our son goes to a classical academy, and there are only 11 kids in his school. And those 11 kids are the most neurodivergent, quirky, queer kids you'll ever meet. So, like, Aiden is actually in the minority at that school because he's very, like, cishet straight boy, and everyone else, like, in his class, there's him and two other people. The other two people in his class are trans. So, he is in a very safe environment in school, and I know that they're teaching him things that I would like for him to learn in school instead of what's going on in public schools right now. Um, Outside of that, when we enter outside of our house and into the real world, we're scared. We are scared shitless every day.
And just for clarity for people who are listening, you are in Kentucky?
We're in Ohio, which
Ohio.
is a little bit worse. We moved from Kentucky thinking Ohio would be better, and Ohio has went down the toilet in the last 2 years. We have bathroom bans. We have bills getting introduced every day to take, like, there's one that's getting introduced right now that's trying to take gender affirming care from every age range, and are like, there's just so much happening in Ohio right now that I could get into a whole nother segment.
Oh,
But
yeah, you know I'm a Texan, so I totally
yeah,
understand.
like, exactly. You're in Texas, and Texas, we haven't been able to travel to Texas in about 5 years, so I get it. It's Ohio's right there behind you. They want to be Texas so bad here. Um, but no, it's hard. Hannah and I have been trying to figure out our contingency plan. We So for a lot of people, they don't recognize that in order to get your birth certificate updated, And when you have a child, you have to get your physical, yours changed first. So in order to get Aiden's birth certificate changed, I have to get mine changed. Georgia will only amend birth certificates, and Indiana doesn't take an amended birth certificate in order to change his birth certificate. So
Mm.
right now, we are stuck. We can't get him a passport because I can't do it without a secondary parent, and my baby daddy ain't shit. So, and Hannah doesn't count yet. So we have to go through the adoption process, and we had to move from our bad county in Ohio to a good county in Ohio for us to pursue adoption without them being like, oh no, this trans couple can't adopt. And even more so, I have to like legally adopt my own child again, technically.
What?
It's for me to get my name on the birth certificate, they're having to like slide in. Like, it's gonna look like I adopted my own child, which
Wow,
is,
that is insane.
but it's the only way that we're gonna be able to do it to get him a passport so we have some kind of safeguard in case we need to leave. And it's hard because it's hard having these conversations with Aiden because he's such a sweethearted kid that he doesn't understand the concept of like, no, like we're kind of like we're seriously in danger, son. Like if we have to leave Ohio, I know your friends are here and you have a lot of things that you care about here, but we may have to leave, and I don't want to leave, but that may be a future for us. So it's navigating those kind of conversations that are really hard for us, especially since Aiden is neurodivergent. He is very resistant to change. So we're very cognizant of how to give him this message.
I'm sorry you're dealing with that. I can only I'm because I'm dealing with it in the sense of thinking about my safety and thinking about options of leaving, staying. Or do I want to go to another state? Do I want to go to another country? And I can only imagine having a child in dealing with that kind of anxiety, and I that's crazy. That's just yeah. I'm sorry that you're going through that.
Yeah, I have friends who have packed up and they actually just left and they're in Italy now with their trans son. And they were saying like how much of an amazing experience it's been, but how they did move with a 13-year-old. So their 13-year-old is very much a mad teenager right now and is not happy about this move and is really frustrated. And that's something that I keep thinking about in the back of my mind of like, oh yeah, if we move, we're gonna have a mad teenager with us.
Oh,
No matter what, there's just like, so yeah.
and then I can imagine that like even the language barrier can be something that's like damn.
Oh my God, I want to thank all of our new patrons this week. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yay, 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 yay. So, not only are you helping to sustain this particular podcast, I also donate to other podcasts, I donate to other organizations. I have my finger on the pulse of the community. And I know a lot of grassroots organizations that are doing great work out here. So you're not only helping to sustain us, you're helping to sustain other people in a community because I put my money where my mouth is. That's just the kind of bitch I am. Community is fuck. So thank you. I really, really appreciate you. And if you have not become a patron, why have you not? You can donate as low as $1 a month. It doesn't matter. Anything helps. Please. Do I have to play Sarah McLachlan and show you puppies? Like, what do I have to do? Do I have to resort to what the white people do to get you to give them money? All righty. Anyway, thank y'all. And the Patreon and PayPal link is at the bottom. Back to the show.
So I want for you to tell me, I know that you kind of got into the leather community in 2019.
Mhm.
Tell me, tell me the lead up to 2019? How are you introduced to it as an idea, and then how are you introduced to it as a person coming newly into the leather community?
Okay. So for me, I think it's happened with my first relationship coming into this community. Hannah and I had opened up our marriage and decided we were going to be polyamorous or oh gosh, ethnically non-monogamous. Wow, it's been a day. So we decided to be poly and knew that that was our journey. I decided, you know what? I was ready to start dating. Initially, I hadn't gotten many hits as far as like going on dates for people that I felt like I was going to really connect with until I met my ex. And my ex was really into the leather kink BDSM community. And it fascinated me. It fascinated me this idea that you can um he taught me about headspace and I was like, what's headspace? And he was like, the idea that when you sink into a sexual experience so deep that you lose your like your physical consciousness and you float into the air basically. It sounds bizarre. And when I heard it I was like, wait, what? You're floating during sex? I don't think I've had that experience. Um, and so we tried a couple of things, and I will say that my ex is a white person. And so there were certain things that I tried with them for the first time and was like, oh, no, this doesn't feel right. And I recognized it was because it was their whiteness, not because I didn't enjoy it. So there are certain things in the leather community that I had to learn with trying. So, for instance, flogging. Flogging is the idea that there is a instrument used to whip you on your back. Um, and not whips like small tail whips, but there's multiples of it. And I really enjoy getting flogged, but not by white people. I don't get flogged by white people ever, actually, since my ex, because I realized that was a triggering moment for me. Um, but it does help me sink into a headspace with the right people. I also enjoy other things that me and my ex figured out, and he took me to my first leather contest, which was actually Cincinnati Leather Weekend 2019. And upon entering, I was bewildered, Diamond. Like, it was, people had on harnesses, shock straps, butts out, chest out. I was like, where am I and what is happening? And why do I feel like I have found my people? um,
For people who are vanilla like me, let me give a little description, and you tell me if I'm wrong. Um, so the leather community is a kind of like a subculture and a social culture, often associated with the LGBTQIA plus world and associated with the BDSM world too. But they are distinctly different. And the kink world, there's all kinds of like overlap in this regards. But what distinguishes the leather community is the aesthetic that it includes like leather garments, gears, and accessories. And from what I'm to understand, it kind of emerged in kind of like the post World War II era of kind of gay men motorcycle clubs. That's what it feels like. That's the history that it kind of comes from, and since that time it has emphasized into like consensual activities and mentorships and celebration of like kind of like this. No, some groups can be kind of strict, but it has grown into like a diverse sexual expression, often kind of involving themes of power exchange and fetishism, consensual stuff, all that kind of stuff. So does that give you a general broad explanation of what the leather community is?
Yes, I think you hit it right on the nail. Like, perfect. Perfect.
So you find yourself for the first time in a leather space. And so
Mhm.
you're like, oh, it's like Dorothy coming to Oz in the color.
Yes, it was. It like everything just turned on, and I was like, "Wait, what? How have I been living before?" Um, and I started experiencing stuff, and I even took back things that I wanted to experience with my spouse. That Hannah and I started to do like kink things and um take some of those things from the kink and leather space. I I really enjoy the leather aesthetic as well because leather always makes me feel sexy. And when you're a trans person, a lot of times it's hard to feel sexy. A lot of times your dysphoria gets in the way of that. But every time I have my vest on, every time I have my boots on, every time I have my harness on or any kind of garment, I feel sexy. And that's not like I have to get used to that. Even though I've been in this community for so long, I still have to get used to that when I look into the mirror and I'm like, you know what? I look pretty dope right now. Yeah, I love that about the leather community and the leather aesthetic too.
Oh, that's so amazing that you just said that because I'm trying to think. I don't, when it comes to my transness, really not just my womanhood, I don't remember my womanhood ever being void of sexy. Like unintentional, intentional, da da da. Sexy is such a part of my womanhood that I don't remember a time where I was asked or I thought about like taking it off. It feels like that's just like a part of it, a part of my femininity. And so just you saying that just kind of sparked some curiosity. But anyway, I remember when I was younger, there was a club that was called Our Place. It's called Greg's now, but it's still around in the city that I'm from, Indianapolis, Indiana. And Our Place was something that I actually have never been inside of Our Place because when I was growing up as a young little queer boy that hadn't even had sex, hadn't done anything, my uncles would use that club as a reference to my mother to stop letting me be free, because they would say if you don't stop treating that boy like a girl, he's going to end up down at that club, down at Our Place with them people. And so that club was seen ingrained in my head to be kind of, those people are weird, those people are it was just a fucking gay club to them. So really that's what it was. But it was up the street from where we lived, and I would see the people coming in and out of it, and the clothes that they wear was leather. I didn't know at the time, but it was a leather themed bar, gay bar. And so
Mhm.
in my brain, there was a negative connotation to that club and the type of people that I saw going in and out of clubs. And so as I grew up, the leather community was very white centered. So I was like, oh, that's white people shit. And so when I would tell my mom I was going to the gay club and she would try to imply that that would be the club, I was like, no, I'm black. I don't go to that club. That's not da 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 da. So it's Greg's now, but at the time it was called Our Place. And it was associated with whiteness. It was associated with the leather was kind of like a different type of queer in my young mind. Now as I'm older, I know all about, not all about it, but I have a different context of it. I know it's just a subculture of the queer culture that I know of. And so I just remember it having a negative connotation, so much so that I never stepped foot in that club, even as an adult. But then I got older and I start going to this little bar, and this guy came in and he was all in his stuff, and he was like, he had his like chaps, his leather chaps on, he had the little page boy hat on, and the chest was all hairy and out with his vest on, and he just had the leather look. And I was able to sit down at the bar and actually talk to him because the person that he was meeting didn't show up, and I was meeting somebody there, and we were at a little club called the Unicorn. And I was like, "Oh, where are you coming from?" And he was like, "Oh, I just left OP's, which is our place, the club." And I was like, "Oh, I've never been in there." And he was black. So I was like, that shit is for white people. Real ignorant. I was real ignorant young. So I'm like, I think I was probably like 17. And I was like, trans young girl in this club. I wasn't supposed to be in there. I think he was like 23. And I was like, that's white people stuff. Why you da, 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 da. And he was like, no, it's not. And he just literally sat and kind of educated me on the history of it, and then how he was kind of navigating it as he was a dom, and it just opened me up that this is just another a culture within our culture. And so that's how I was introduced to it. So it's interesting, not through any kind of relationship or any kind of that. Is just that as a young child, because I lived up the street from a leather bar, it went from having negative connotation to just being, oh, this is just a subculture.
Yeah. I wish I would have had an introduction that was something similar to that, where it was less like relationship oriented. Like, I appreciate my first relationship into this community, but it was very hard navigating a breakup where people didn't recognize me associated with my ex, because my ex was a boot black in the community and was a title holder of an international status within the community. So there was a sense of, oh, you're so and so's boy. Well, after I wasn't so and so's boy anymore,
Who am I?
yeah, like, I felt very lost. I felt very disconnected from the community because I was still fairly new, like a year within the community. So I was still trying to navigate. I had just gotten a title within 8 months of being in the community because I'm a pageant kid, and I saw a need, and I saw the community not being as diverse as I needed it to be, and there was a gap of trans education. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna run for this title and do a little bit more activism within this community. But that happened within 8 months of me having the title. So, like, I was still very new, very fresh in this community, trying to figure it out.
So how has being a trans man informed or shaped like your participation in the leather community? Because I have heard some toxic things too, but I can only imagine that it can kind of be kind of strange or kind of jarring. How has it shaped you being a trans man? How has it shaped your participation?
It's been difficult. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I know that there are some trans men who will say, "Oh, if you let it bother you, then it's gonna affect your everyday interaction with people within the community," when that's not the majority. And they're right. It's not the majority, but there are some very loud, annoying people within the community who talk shit all the time about Why are trans people included in this space? Why are women included in this space? Like, the fact is, the leather community is still having fights about brotherhood only spaces is
Yeah.
beyond me. When we all know that women are a huge part of the leather community, and we're a huge part of creating kind of the infrastructure of some of the things that we do within this community, especially around contests, around taking care of each other, around mutual aid and advocacy. So I definitely struggle with that part. Me personally, when I figured out that it was going to be difficult for me to enjoy being in the leather community without speaking up, I decided to go the route of being a title holder, because I was like, that's going to give you the platform you need for people to start listening. Um, and when I became a title holder, I knew I need to teach people about what it means to be a trans ally or a trans advocate in this community, as well as leather. A huge part of leather culture is sexuality. It is around sex. A lot of cisgender men have no idea what to do with a vagina. And I was figuring that out very early in. It was like, I didn't realize that this was so difficult for you all. Like, I assumed this would be common knowledge, or you would have Googled something, or you were paying attention to any kind of anything. And no, like, I literally had to develop a class called Vaginal Sex for Gay Men and literally teach how to have sex for gay men. And at first I thought this class was going to go over terribly. And Diamond, when I say the amount of men who showed up for this class over the last 4 years has been phenomenal. And each time someone comes and asks me questions that they're like, oh, I felt really stupid asking this question. Thank you for giving me the environment to be able to ask something like this. Or being able to say, like, hey, I learned so much in this class. I really appreciate you doing something like this for the community, because you don't have to.
Why that's so groundbreaking is that this is a very cisgender male dominated space, and there's a lot, and so because of that, there's a lot of that kind of toxic masculinity that is ingrained within the culture. There is a lot of power dynamics and dominating kind of things that kind of can really cross a line in not being consensual, or just not centering everybody's pleasure in the situation, and dismissive. There's a lot of elements that you have to navigate, and so for somebody to come into the space and be willing to spend their time to teach and actually put in the work, that, and like you said, you thought maybe people wouldn't have that interest, but clearly somebody did, and so that's groundbreaking in itself. Tell me, do you feel there's any kind of like misconceptions around trans men's involvement in leather that your story kind of might will help and challenge? Like, what are those particular like misconceptions other than the motherfuckers not knowing how to fucking find a clit, or how vagina works? But what other challenges?
I definitely think the biggest challenge that a lot of times I see is, it's so stupid, but it's something that's overlooked. Having events and spaces where we can't go. Like, there's been a lot of times where I've shown up to a certain event and people have been like, okay, the after party is at so and so's bathhouse. That bathhouse has a rule where your ID has to match your gender marker. Like, it has to be a male gender marker to get in. What about the 30 women and the 3 trans men that are in the audience right now? What do they do? They're not allowed to participate in these kind of things. or having these male only spaces at certain events that makes it feel very ostracizing to the outside community because, like you said, it is a cisgender male heavy place. And then those toxic masculinity mindsets of like, yes, I am a trans man who is a bottom and a submissive, but that doesn't mean every trans man that's coming into this community is a bottom and a submissive. Like, I know a lot of trans men who top and who exclusively top. So making those kind of assumptions about people just based upon their parts is really just gross and icky to me too.
Mm. I remember earlier this year we did an episode and we discussed grizzly pines here in Texas, and it is a campground that has tons of like parties, leather parties, bear parties, just different kind of male centered events. And there was this one event that they were explicitly excluding trans men in the in participating, and
Mhm.
so I can only imagine, based on what you're describing, that that happens a lot. If you had to give it a percentage, what is the resistance? How many is it? Like half and half? Is it how are the what's the resistance? Like what do you see? Do you see a shifting in the past since you started in 2019? Have you seen the support for trans men in the space kind of actively shift, or what have you seen socially?
See, Diamond, that's you're asking me hard questions, and the reason I say this is because I'm coming off of a very hard, challenging um, loss. I just competed at Midwest Person of Leather. And at this contest, I did a presentation. So the presentation part is an education. You have 10 minutes to teach on anything of your own regard. So I taught on liberatory masculinity and how to overcome toxic masculinity within the kink community. And one of the things I said was all cisgender white men are born with toxic masculinity. Diamond, the way that room rustled and people like, Diamond, the way I thought I wasn't gonna make it out of that room. And the way the judges afterwards like not only scored me low but also asked me really inappropriate questions during the interview to like prove my point, because at the end of my class one woman says, well, why is it only white cisgender men? And I was like, because they're considered by American standards to be the pinnacle, to be like what everyone wants to be like. So yes, that's where it starts. And if you don't see that, then I don't know how to change that for you. Kind of like all white people are racist. It's in the same regard. And she was like, and then I said that, and the room started rustling again, and I was like, "Oh God, I didn't lost this contest." They don't say, "Get this black activist out of here. He is doing the absolute most." Um, so then I get my score sheets back, and I'm seeing all of these comments about, "Oh, maybe you are too biased. Maybe you need to open your mind. Oh, you already have a seat at the table that you're trying to get representation for." All of these things that were like, oh, y'all aren't getting it. My speech, I spent 2 minutes on stage doing my speech, and my speech was telling people I'm sick of allies. I said that. I said I need accomplices. The trans community needs accomplices. We no longer need allies. I need you to be on the line doing something. I'm sick of the likes, the reshares, and that's it. Um, and I got a lot of feedback and a lot of pushback of people being like, yes, but we are doing something, and other marginalized people are in at risk right now too. Well, yeah, but like the trans community, like one, it's not the oppression Olympics. Two, the trans community is actively being attacked every single day, multiple times a day, all day. That looks very different for a lot of people right now, especially white people. Um, so with that being said, before this contest, I was like, "Oh, we're good. We're at like 80% people are on board for trans people, and they're doing better and rocking it out." Now I'm like, maybe we're not. Maybe I'm living with rose shade glasses on, and it's looking more like 60%, maybe 50%. Because I think people want to be allies, but they don't want to be challenged. They don't want to be told, hey, what you're doing is not enough. I need you to do more. They want to do the bare minimum. And we're no longer in a state where you can do the bare minimum. If you,
Right.
yeah.
Oh God, I know them white boys was in there. Gay white boys, baby. Woo!
The gay white boys were not here for me. And I would like to point out this contest was the first contest where Hannah and I experienced the most, like, so it was Person of Leather and it was also Master and Slave. Master and Slave tends to be straight couples in this community. So this contest had a lot of straight cisgender white men there. And you could tell how, like, yeah, the room got real uncomfortable when I spoke a lot of the
Uh,
times.
because I can imagine, like when I think of the leather community, there is a lot of focus on power dynamics. There is a lot of focus on power dynamics, and so I can only imagine that when you are challenging those power dynamics, specifically in a place that is rooted in sexuality, which is a lot of place where people feel like they can be free with all of their toxic stuff. Like this is a place where we can do the race play and it be okay if somebody's okay. This is where we can do the dominant misogynistic role play. Like this, our sexual space is where we can do all of that stuff without judgment. And here you come bringing this woke shit into our space, and I can see how that can be resistance, because it's like, I didn't come here for this. This is my fantasy getaway. I didn't come here for this bullshit. Is am
That
I?
part.
I'm not in the community, but I can only imagine that is what y'all
Yes,
get.
that is what I'm getting, and that's what I'm running against. Like this was my first time teaching this class, and I knew it was gonna rock the boat. Didn't realize it was gonna rock the boat this much. I was like, oh, I teach really good classes. I've been told I teach really good classes. I should be fine. Nope. They said I was racist, and I said,
Wow.
that's interesting. Like,
And I can see you said you first got into it in 2019, and I just culturally, that is like almost like the peak of time when people were like, ooh, we want to be inclusive of trans, but we are seeing a decline, a drastic decline, where people are divesting from that diversity, equity, inclusion. And it's not, we love to think that it's just Republican, but yeah, they're
it's
super,
not.
super extreme, but even people on our side is adopting that I don't give a fuck about that no more. And that kind of that spitefulness, like, oh, we cared about it 5 years ago because it performatively there was some social capital that we can kind of get by us performing this inclusion, diversity, da, 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 da. But now that people are divesting from it, and there's no social capital that we can gain by being inclusive, and it's okay to kind of throw these people away because they're also causing us all these problems. Look, because a lot of people I hear slow key slick saying these trans people are causing us all these problems all of a sudden.
Hmm.
Now shit, they're trying to overturn gay marriage and da, 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 da. I can see those kind of conversations. I can see the timeline and what you experienced and how when you came into the community, it was like this rise of inclusion, and then now we're 6 years later, and the culture has changed. Did you see that?
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the culture has shifted, and I feel like people are less. I'm hearing a lot of people give a more pushback to strong activists like myself, strong activists who are saying the uncomfortable things, making people feel uncomfortable in spaces that are supposed to be safe because they're not safe for everyone. So doing these challenging conversations, there's this sense of, oh no, this isn't the right time. You can have these conversations one on one. Why are you doing this right now? Which is disheartening because there's people who have this idea that leather spaces are super safe. And I don't want people to think they're not, because they can be, but there is still work that needs to be done within this community. And I don't want people to stop and get comfortable with where we're at, because there are still people who are not at the table, or who are at the table and our hands are chained and our mouths are duct taped.
In my brain, I always, because of that power dynamic, and the stereotype that of submission and dominance and all those things that are involved in to me, that sector of the community. Because my romantic or sexual prowess is not rooted in power dynamics or dominance and submission. It never was something that I was interested in exploring, because it just felt like it did not seem like that would be safe. I've never been in a situation with any, and I date cis men, unfortunately.
Same.
So I've never been in a situation where it was safe, when the dynamics is about power, and dynamics is about dominance, and even if I'm the person who is expected to be the dominant, I've just never been in the submissive goes too far, or it's just so much. I just was like, oh yeah, I just don't think this is for me. And so, yeah, what advice could you give to another trans person who is considering exploring the leather community? Yeah, and yeah, how would you advise them coming into the space?
I always say do your research. Do your research. Do not come into this based upon other people's perceptions. Do your own research and then decide what you want out of this situation. Don't let anyone pressure you into doing this, and vet people. I am still learning how to vet people correctly, because vetting is such a huge important part, and some people can play dishonest for a certain amount of time and you not know it. So making sure you're asking the right questions, you're asking about certain situations, you're making sure you're forthcoming about your boundaries, and you're doing that work yourself. A lot of people coming to this community looking for themselves. And I like to counter people and say, you should know yourself before you do this. Because I am guilty of that. I came into this community looking for myself, and if I would have come in with a little bit more foundation of who I am, I could have gotten through, and I could have over went bypassed. There we go. I could have bypassed several. uncomfortable things I didn't have to deal with to be a part of this community. So I definitely say make sure you know yourself, you're creating those boundaries, and you're doing your research. The Leatherman's mentorship guide. There's a lot of different books. The Leatherman handbook. There's a lot on and I'll send you a list of resources that I have so you can link that to this. But there are a lot of different resources that I would recommend that are beneficial for people to make sure that they have.
So I don't want to scare everybody. We talking about the negative side of the leather community and obstacles. But what are some of like the glimmers? What are some of the beautiful things that you have experienced in the leather community? What kind of breakthroughs that you have personally on a like a mental level, but also on a physical level? What are something that you learned about your body and what you liked and the amazing part of the pleasurable part about the leather community?
So, things that I really enjoy that I learned through this process, I never knew that I liked being a facilitator, but being able to facilitate a class and to teach others was really great. I didn't know I would be able to do a demo in front of others. I was never comfortable even showing my chest in front of others, let alone dropping my pants and getting fisted in front of a group of people. But like I've done that several times and had people ask me questions while I'm being fisted. And the fact that like A, I've done that, and B, my spouse has been there with me to experience that with me has been really, really awesome and cool. I'm glad we've had that experience together. Um, I definitely think I have to highlight ONYX. ONYX has been amazing. ONYX is the BIPOC fraternity I'm in for bi or gay or even straight men, depending on if you want to be a associate or a full brother. And it's an organization about education, about empowerment, and we really do a lot to empower Black men within this community, empower BIPOC men within this community, honestly, and just really uplift them. We have 13 chapters now. Yeah, 13 chapters, I think. And maybe more because we just got a bunch of new ones, so don't quote me on that, but I think it's 13. And we're about to celebrate our 30th anniversary. So we have been around for a minute, and Mufasa's dream is something that Mufasa is one of our founding fathers. And to him, to have him create such a safe space for Black men to explore their sexuality and for BIPOC men to explore what they want to do for leather and for kink and for the community is amazing because we didn't have those spaces. We weren't getting spots in those white organizations. So he created this one. And now I don't know if I would have lasted in leather without being a part of ONYX.
You're describing, this fraternity, and so how have you found brotherhood, and how are you defining it? What's the concept? How have you deepened it within yourself now that you have this BIPOC brotherhood? How has it manifested in a better way?
For me, it has shown up in a way that I have overcome my own biases and toxic masculinities. Um, even, and I say this all the time, even trans men can be toxic. Some trans men are the most toxic. So
Oh,
this idea that we are not toxic is, I don't know who made that up, but it's not true. And so being a part of this organization has really challenged some things that I had toxic masculinity behind. So for me, things that like I had never heard of a soft dom before. I was like, what is a soft? Excuse me, what? What's that mean? But this idea that like my longest dynamic was with a soft dom, and it was a really great commitment, just not at the right time. But nevertheless, I say that to say that I was really resistant at first because I was like, I don't know how this is gonna work. I'm real bratty, and like, how does this? You're not very dominant. Like, you're not very discipline oriented. Am I just gonna like walk all over you? Like, what am I, a Gen A right now? Gen Alpha kid right now? Um, so that, like, being able to have that moment and just learn that brotherhood is not, it doesn't have to be toxic. It doesn't have to be this macho thing all the time. It could be soft. It could be gentle. It could be nurturing. That has been an experience. My siblings in ONYX, because ONYX, we have the ONYX Pearls as well, which is for our femme identified individuals. My siblings have had my back through some of the hardest times these last 5 years. Like, we got through COVID together. We have gotten through Trump part one together, or we're gonna get through Trump part two together. Like, my siblings have really held me down. So yeah.
That was going to be my next question. Like you right now you're discussing, chosen family, and so how has your chosen family kind of impacted your mentorship? How has it impacted your journey through the leather community, and like even how you express your identity within the community? How has your chosen family actually impacted that?
Oh, they've always made me feel safe. Every single person that's within my chosen family has made me feel safe enough to be able to go out there and tell people about my journey and tell people about my story, and them always have my back in case things get rough. So, for instance, when I taught at IML back in 2020, I was actually doxxed by the alt right for my class. A bunch of alt right gay men picked up on my class and said I was trying to convert gay men to trans men by teaching a class about vagina as at the largest leather conference, which is supposed to be like International Mr. Leather is very much high masculinity. So teaching a class about vaginas in a high masculinity event was not thought about very. They didn't look at it very favorably. That class was packed. Every single one of my brothers and sisters showed up. They went online and made sure that they put statements out from every chapter saying that trans men are men, trans women are women. If you have a problem with it, that's on you, but don't come for my sibling. And it was the first year ever that so many people applied pressure to IML that IML put out its first statement saying trans men are men, which was weird because the year before, IML's actual title holder was a trans man, and they still were just kind of letting him out to the wind sometimes. So it was, it felt good to have my siblings really have my back and make me feel safe in those spaces.
So, what are some of the things that people who are not of trans experience are in the leather community? What are some of the things that they can actively do to be comrades, to be accomplices, and not just allies to, you know, trans men in that space?
Whew. One, let us participate. Like, if I go to a dungeon, I'm in the dungeon because I'm trying to get it on too. Like, don't like don't treat me like I'm just like this awkward. I don't know. It's weird to explain, but a lot of times when you go into these spaces, people don't want to play with you, and that makes you feel worse. Because you know they're not playing with you because you're trans. Um, so I definitely say if you want to play with a trans person in one of those spaces, approach them. Don't be afraid. They're probably wanting you to, and talk with them about it. Also, don't make assumptions. Make sure you're having conversations about like what you want to do with this person and what they want to have done with them. Um, Making assumptions turns you into an ass. So like, just don't. Showing up for us at protests, online, everywhere. Like right now, we need you calling representatives. We need you showing up out on the streets. Like there's a lot of really bad things happening. So I definitely think that, especially within the leather community, we sometimes pretend that we don't notice what's happening on the outside when we should be the first people noticing and doing something about what's happening on the outside. Um, so yeah, I definitely think I want to see more boots on the ground right now.
One thing that I learned, even in my own relationships, from the BDSM, leather, kink community, even though I'm not in the community, just hearing from people who are in the community, what I love is what you just described, just the negotiation and the open talking about this is what I want to explore. This is what I like. This is what that whole negotiation. I think when I was younger, I had a really hard time with, because of my queer body, because of my queer identity, because of how I thought about my girlhood, how I thought about how I wanted my body to be engaged with in a way that wasn't triggering to me, triggering my dysphoria. It was hard for me to negotiate my pleasure because I was navigating, and it had nothing to do with the people outside. Sometimes it did, but usually it had nothing to do with the people outside of me. It was just me and my own entanglement with gender and in those dynamics with my body, and how I wanted to navigate and be pleased. What I learned from the kink community was having those kind of conversations up front and directly and honestly, and even if you're not 100% for sure, even saying that I'm not 100% for sure about this, and can lead to an answer. It can lead to exploration with somebody being safe if both of you are honest and talking about it and having that kind of negotiation and that kind of communication. And that's what I learned that was really, really beautiful, that I can incorporate in my own sex life, in my own pleasure exploration, because that is what kind of made me have the breakthrough that I didn't have in my younger years. In my 30s, that's when I had that breakthrough, and so in my younger years, it was just foolery, and not foolery from just my partners, but even me, my own navigating those kind of weird things. Not weird things, weird way my mind thought about those things, and so yeah, I love that part about the community, the kink community.
Yeah, same.
Gimme euphoria, more than peace of mind. It's the joy and space to change the tide. Gimme euphoria, more than peace of mind. It's the joy and space to change the tide. Gimme you. It's a feeling and a high you never come down from. Whoa.
What is bringing you euphoria this week?
What is bringing me euphoria this week? I am 1 week closer to ONYX Blackout. Blackout is our family reunion, basically, where every chapter from all over the United States comes and meets up at one bar. And by one bar, I mean one hotel. Sorry, don't know why I said bar. One hotel. And we spend time together. We're in community together for a whole, almost a week. So I'm very excited about that. That's bringing me so much euphoria because I get to see all of my trans ONYX brothers and all of my cis brothers and all my sisters, and it's going to be a good time.
I currently this week I joined this Discord called Help Me Leave. This Discord of organizers is positive. It's positive. This Discord of organizers in other countries, multiple other countries that are collecting resources for people who are in marginalized communities in the United States. If, these are the people, this is how you do this, this is how you do the visa, this is how you do if you want to go to school, just ways of, this is cheaper apartments, this is the best neighborhoods, this is where who is doing the work that is allowing people, if they wanted to go to another country, like there's some organizers who are actually doing that work and really kind of centralizing resources, not just money but just even like information in other countries that are more inclusive, and we will be welcoming to you if you do want to actually leave, if it gets that bad for you. And so they literally have bought people's tickets. They literally have just giving people roommates, like, oh, this person is looking for a roommate and they need help. And it's just dope to see people who are on the outside looking at what we're going through here in America and caring enough to do this work voluntarily to help us figure it out. And I think for me, it gives me, in the darkness of what's going on in our country, it gives me euphoria to see that there are people who actually care and who actually investing time into the work to help us if we even need that resource. And I think that is beautiful. It brought me euphoria this week.
Yes, I think that that's beautiful as well.
Thank you for joining me. I've been wanting you on the show, and you have inspired me to explore. And even if it isn't my thing, I still want to know about it and still want to think about it, because who knows, there might be a sector that's like, ooh, I like this. And so you have inspired me, and I appreciate your existence and your honesty and your openness. And yeah, thank you for joining Marsha's Plate.
Of course, thank you for having me. It was a
Tell the
pleasure.
tell the people where they can find you.
The people can find me on Facebook. I'm Boy Mayura ONYX, Mayura.
And I will have all of those links in the bottom. Thank y'all for listening. Make sure y'all check him out, and we will see y'all next week. Bye bye.
The best way to support is to engage with the content. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Another way to support, if you got a couple of dollars, become a patron. And if you can't do any of that, you can at least follow us on social media, where you'll get our random hot takes and just us sharing all the people and things that we love, that is black, trans, queer, centered. Yeah, come check us out.